watch him, Ellis. You want to watch him? Right there.
It appears all guns are ready. Now, all the way to the left is McNeil's Rangers from right here in Hanover, Pennsylvania. The person shooting is Kim Lindner. She's one of your EMS people. Make ready. Fire.
Oh, you see the big ball in the air?
Good shot.
Woo! Now the second one. So now we have no more shooters.
The next crew to the right, with the biggest flag on the field, I've got flag envy, is the 1st Pennsylvania Rifles, the Bucktails. Randy Angel, another one of your EMS people that's here working with us this weekend, is going to fire. Make ready. Fire. That looks good. Very nice. Let's give him a hand.
Did it make it?
They're trying to make it.
Moving to the right, we have 2 guns that are both from the same team. This is the 1st Maryland Cavalry from Winchester, Virginia.
Or the other ones?
Andy Krause is going to be shooting this one. This is going to be an 8-inch siege mortar. Make ready. Fire. Smoke ring too. Nice shot. And the last mortar to the right is also the 1st Maryland Cavalry. This one's owned by my wife. Erica Garrett is going to be the shooter. Make ready. Fire. Whoa. Somehow women always seem to do it better. These are all North-South Skirmish Association teams. We shoot these mortars in competition between 15 and 20 times a year. We're shooting downrange. If you look, the left 2 guns today are representing a Union battery. McNeil's Rangers is flying a Confederate flag, even though they're Union sympathizers today. And the 2 teams the team on the right is the 1st Maryland Cavalry CSA. It's kind of ironic. The 2 guns on the left, with McNeil's and the 1st Pennsylvania Rifles, are Confederate pattern mortars. They're 24-pounder Tredegar Confederate pattern mortars. The 2 guns, and they're being shot by the Yankees. The Confederates on the right are shooting Union pattern mortars. The big one is a model of 1861 8-inch siege mortar, and the smaller one is a model of 1838 Cohorn mortar. The 3 Cohorn mortars, the smaller ones, are shooting 6-inch diameter cannonballs roughly, with about 2.5 to 3 ounces of powder for close range. The siege mortar for close range is shooting about 5.5 ounces. Now downrange, we also have some very important people. Those are our spotters. They're from the 2nd Virginia Volunteer Infantry from Berryville, Virginia. Let's give those guys a hand. They're the ones in mortal danger there. The ham on the right actually is a retired Park Service worker up here. He retired a couple years ago after 32 years of service. It's Jim Johnson. Let's give him a local hand. He's challenging us by putting his hat on top of the flag out there.
Fire at the hat.
Crews are coming down the home stretch here for the 2nd shot. Our 2nd shot we're going to shoot by battery. So we're going to shoot the 2 guns on the left representing a Union battery at the same time. Then we're going to shoot the 2 guns on the right for the Confederate battery at the same time. It's a little bit of a competition here.
So that person all the way over there. Not the first people, the last people that got.
Looks like we are all ready. Well, you were the last ones to shoot, so it takes a little more time. Okay, now we're ready. Union battery, make ready. Fire.
Where? Oh, wow. I can see them.
Pretty good shooting. They went a little long.
But the first one.
Let's see if the Rebs can give them a little what for. Confederate battery, make ready.
No.
Fire! Nicely in unison.
Come down.
Wow! It's a good thing these guys weren't at Gettysburg. What we're shooting at downrange is the gray flag on the left. That's at 100 yards from the two mortars. There's a blue flag on the right. They're representing a Union and a Confederate fort. So the Union battery's trying to drop the balls into the Confederate fort, where the Confederates are trying to drop the balls into a Union fort. The way the mortars were deployed actually in combat was they were shot from a much longer distance. The smaller mortars, never within 400 to 500 yards, would be about the closest you'd want to engage your targets. Maximum range on the small ones was 1,200 yards. The siege mortar would not normally shoot within about 800 yards of its intended target, and it would go up to 1.5 miles. The 24-pound mortars, the Cohorns, shot 8 ounces of powder for a full service load, which made the ball go approximately 12 to 1,300 yards, or 2/3 to 3/4 of a mile. The siege mortar shot 3.5 pounds of powder. The designation of the 24-pound mortar is what a solid ball would weigh if it was made out of iron at that diameter. These only shot shells, which means they were filled with powder and they had a time fuse in them. The gunner would range the distance to its target, say it was 1,000 yards. You want the ball to explode over its target, doing the maximum damage. So if they would look at a chart inside their limber box, it would have a time of flight on it for a range in a certain powder charge. If it was 6 ounces of powder to make it go 1,000 yards, and the time of flight was 11 seconds, they would cut the fuse to 10.5 seconds, so it would explode right over top the target, doing the most damage to personnel and property.
Sit down, Celine, and stop touching it. Let go.
Stop. Why are they gonna fire? Fire. Ready. Set. Fire.
You'll notice that the crews have safety as our #1 priority. The people loading the guns have a leather sleeve and a leather glove on just in case something could happen. But the first thing they do after the gun shoots is flood the barrel with water and the vent. Put out any possible ignition source for the next powder charge. Okay. We're going to volley fire all 4 guns this time. Looks like we're still waiting on McNeil's. So this time we're going to try and shoot all 4 guns at the same time. And we have a guest shooter on my wife's mortar down there. That's the national commander of the North-South Skirmish Association, Dave Booth. He's a local professor of history here. All guns, make ready. Fire! Wow, let's give him a hand. That's some good shooting there. But back to cleaning, you'll notice that Ray on the siege mortar right now is taking a cleaning swab that he just dunked into a water bucket, and he's going to clean the entire barrel out, and then run another piece of cleaning material down the vent hole, which goes to the bottom of the chamber. That way there's no chance of a possible ignition. Then they re-aim the gun. In this case, they're going to be changing the gun over to shooting 200 yards, which if you look across the field toward the top of the hill, there's another target stake and a target box. And that flag out there has a blue integrate, which is a common stake for all 4 guns. The gunners are doing their calculations now to see how much more powder to add to it to make it shoot further distance. Normally, it's about 50% more for the 24-pounders, and it's almost double for the siege mortar for this distance.
She went back to sit down.
Guys, leave that alone now.
The way the time fuses worked in these guns to make it explode in the air was it would be oriented with, there's a hole in the ball, the ball's filled with powder, and then there's a wooden fuse plug. The fuse itself was made out of paper, and it was filled with a sulfur matrix, and it had 1 second increments lines marked on it for the gunner to cut it with a pair of fuse cutters. He would then drive them into the ball, and then when they placed the ball on top of the powder charge in the bottom of the barrel, which would launch the ball out, and the gun was shot, the fire would go around the ball and light that fuse. So the ball would actually burst in air. Bombs bursting in air is kind of a patriotic way we have to think about it, because that comes from the Star-Spangled Banner. Star-Spangled Banner is our national anthem. It was it's based on a poem written by Francis Scott Key, September 14th of 1814, as he watched a bombardment of Fort McHenry by the British, and the bombs bursting in air was actually mortar fire from the Royal Navy ships. So, little history lesson there. And the Star-Spangled Banner was actually the name of the flag that flew over top of Fort McHenry during that bombardment, and it had 15 stars and stripes at that time.
We had a national
The balls they're shooting out here today are made of zinc. The reason we make them out of zinc is because it melts at 760 degrees, where the originals were made out of iron. And by weight and density, zinc weighs the same by volume that iron does. The shell weight of the balls, the 24-pounders, are shooting 17-pound balls. The siege mortar, which is an 8-inch ball, shoots a 48-pound ball.
Stop, Celine. 48 pounds. Maybe that's like you getting shot out of a cannon.
Okay, looks like we're coming down the home stretch for the next one. Now this time we're going to shoot them all again individually. We're going to start with the gun on the left being McNeil's, and they're going to be shooting at the flag all the way on the other side of the hill.
Wait, they're gonna be shooting the flag? Dad.
All guns ready? McNeil's, make ready. Fire. Wow. Good shot, guys. You can tell they just live in Hanover. They must be out here practicing. Let's see if the other local team can do her. Bucktails, make ready. Fire.
Where'd it go? Where?
Just a little short, but really good shot still. It was shooting into a headwind, so it's kind of like golf. It blew the ball down. 1st Maryland Cavalry siege mortar, make ready. Fire. A little bit long, but still pretty good. 1st Maryland Cavalry cohorn mortar, make ready. Fire. You notice the ring there, that's a bronze gun, and it makes that distinctive ringing sound. Also a little long. We're going to have to cut those 2 charges back. I'm going to give them a little coaching help.
I didn't see it.
Might be dry, don't rub it.
Take 2 scoops of powder out of the 24-pound cohorn there for the 1st Maryland. You're up. Now I'm in trouble. Yeah, that's my wife. I got to ride home with her. As I was telling you, these are all North-South Skirmish Association teams. The NSSA, as we call it, is a Civil War competitive shooting organization. We compete with mortars, we compete with cannons, muskets, carbines, revolvers, smoothbore muskets, cartridge arms, anything that was shot in the Civil War for the most part we compete with. We have certain uniform competitions also. We have dress competitions for the women. We have BB competitions for the kids. We have a barn dance in our barn. We got all kinds of stuff we can tell you about. We have a recruiting booth back here at the back right end of the grandstands, right behind the activities tent. When the event's over today, we're going to take some of the mortars back and all the balls back, and the crews will be there, can answer any questions, and you can help them even clean the balls if you'd like. You'll notice that they pull a lanyard when they shoot these, just like a lot of the cannons. There was two ways they were fired. They were either fired with a friction primer and a lanyard like we're doing now, or they were used with a quill and a lens stock or a port fire. The quill was actually a goose feather, which had the fletching material stripped off of it. It was filled with musket black powder. And they'd stick it down into that vent hole, punch a hole in the top of it, and light it with a burning piece of rope on a lens stock. The question was, which one is more dependable? They both had a low failure rate. They had more of a failure rate of the fuse not igniting the ball. A lot of the times the ball would actually bury into the ground before it went off, which didn't really do any damage at that point. Okay, with this next time, we're going to do a Union battery and a Confederate battery, so we're going to shoot it in pairs. Union battery's ready, the Confederate battery's finishing up. Union battery, make ready. Fire!
Where did it go?
Very good.
Where did it go?
They must have practiced some since this morning.
Either one. One's a little bit short, one
Confederate battery, see if your adjustments work. Downrange, Paul, scoot. No, out of the box. Always the clown. When you're down there and you're looking at the ball up in the air and it stops moving, that's bad because you're right under it. Confederate battery, make ready. Fire! Might hit. I think they figured that one out. Nice shooting, guys. Okay, we've been given permission. We're going to do something special on the last shot. When we shoot all four together, if you've got a camera or a cell phone with video capability, you want to focus in on that target downrange, and we'll see if we can give you something special today. The NSSA, which all these teams are from, was founded in 1950 by a couple of guys named Jack Rawls and Ernie Peterkin that were having a discussion at a shooting range on who was better, the North or the South. So they got some guys together to represent the Berwyn Bluebellies and the 1st Virginia Volunteers and had a little scrimmage match, which they called a skirmish. And that was the foundation. We've now got close to 3,000 members that shoot. Our national skirmishes at Fort Shenandoah, which is in Winchester, Virginia, where I live, are very well attended with 3,000 competitors, say, and another 10 or 15,000 family members and spectators. We have up to 45, 50 cannons shooting each national now on Saturday afternoon. We have 65 to 70 of these mortars shooting on Friday afternoon. Saturday morning we have a carbine match, which is shooting the Spencers Sharps and Smith carbines, and Sunday is our musket grand event, which is the most competitive. Dave Booz, that's out there with my wife, who's our national commander, will be back at the NSSA booth, and he loves to answer questions.
that would be cool.
There's 3 cannons back there, owned by Delaney Troop, and those guys love to talk about how they shoot competitively also.
That's what they're going to shoot at right now.
And you'll notice that we've got quite a few women out here today.
That's where these guys are
Pretty
taking cover.
reflective, actually, of our
These
organization.
guys are taking cover right there.
The women, actually, I would say hand in hand are average better shots than the men.
Wow. Oh, I want to do that. I want to do that.
The kids might want it. Oh, Maven.
Maybe you can't sit on those arms.
It's a girl power thing. I don't get it.
Girls.
Okay, we're getting close to this last shot.
Which
If
one?
you get your cameras ready or phones,
Single hay bale?
focus them downrange on that flag at the long distance.
Wait.
Stand here, look that way.
Oh.
All guns, make ready. Fire! And the balls converge. Bullseye! Nice shooting, guys. Let's give them a hand. Did they do